The warning alarm screamed through the research ship Gentle Horizon as Commander Zixara gripped her control chair. Outside the viewing ports, purple lightning cracked across the dark sky of Kepler 442c. The ion storm had come from nowhere, turning their peaceful research mission into a nightmare. "Hull integrity dropping fast," called out her science officer, Felon, his thin fingers dancing over the controls. The Kalari were not built for emergencies. Their tall, graceful bodies and translucent skin made them perfect for their peaceful homeworld, but useless in situations like this. Zixara watched the readings with growing horror. The ship's engines were failing one by one. The storm's electromagnetic pulse had fried most of their systems. They had been studying the ancient ruins on this remote planet for 3 days when the weather turned violent. "Can we reach orbit?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "No, Commander. Engine power is down to 12%. We're going down." Felon's voice shook as he spoke. The Kalari had never known war or violence. They explored the galaxy in peace, studying dead civilizations and learning from the past. Their ships were built for comfort and research, not survival. The ship shuddered as another lightning bolt hit their shields. Through the storm, Zixara could see the planet's surface rushing up to meet them. Kepler 442c was classified as a death world by galactic standards. The gravity was 3 times normal. The atmosphere was filled with toxic gases. Worse, the planet was home to some of the most dangerous predators in this sector of space. "Brace for impact," she ordered, though her crew was already strapped in tight. The Gentle Horizon hit the ground hard. The ship bounced twice before sliding across the rocky surface, leaving a trail of sparks and twisted metal. When it finally stopped, half the crew was unconscious and the other half was too shocked to move. Zixara pulled herself up from her chair. Her head was bleeding, and her right arm hung useless at her side. Around her, the bridge was a mess of broken glass and smoking equipment. The main viewer showed only static. "Damage report," she called out weakly. Felon checked his instruments with shaking hands. "Life support is working, but barely. Hull breach in sections 4 and 7. The engines are completely dead." "We're not going anywhere, Commander." Outside, they could hear sounds that made their blood run cold. Roars and howls echoed across the landscape. Something large was moving around their ship, testing their defenses. "Send out a distress call," Zixara ordered. "All frequencies. Someone has to help us." The communications officer, Nixel, was young and scared. She had joined the mission to see the galaxy, not to die on some forgotten planet. Her hands shook as she worked the controls. "Signal sent, Commander. But I don't know if anyone will come. This planet is marked as too dangerous for rescue operations." Zixara nodded sadly. She knew the rules. The Galactic Rescue Consortium would not risk ships and crews for a few survivors on a death world. Most species in the galaxy were like the Kalari, peaceful, advanced, but soft. They had never learned to survive in places like this. Hours passed. The storm slowly moved away, but new dangers took its place. In the dim light of the planet's twin suns, they could see creatures moving outside. Some walked on 6 legs and had acid dripping from their mouths. Others flew overhead on leathery wings, watching the ship with hungry eyes. "Any response to our signal?" Zixara asked. Nixel shook her head. "The consortium has marked our location, but they say a rescue mission is impossible. The environmental conditions would kill any rescue team before they could land." The commander closed her eyes. She had brought 12 crew members on this mission. Now they were all going to die because she had underestimated this world's dangers. "Wait," Nixel said suddenly. "I'm getting something. It's not from the consortium. The signal is coming from the outer rim. Put it through." A rough, gravelly voice filled the bridge. The accent was strange, unlike anything they had heard before. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel Iron Eagle. We received your distress call. What's your situation?" Zixara felt a chill run down her spine. Humans. She had heard stories about them. They came from a world so dangerous that other species called them deathworlders. They were violent, unpredictable, and somehow had survived on a planet that should have killed them long ago. "This is Commander Zixara of the Kalari research ship Gentle Horizon. We've crashed on Kepler 442c. Our ship is damaged beyond repair. We have injured crew members and limited supplies." There was a pause. Then Morrison's voice came back, calm and steady. "Understood, Commander. We're 3 days out from your position. Can you hold out that long?" "I don't know," Zixara admitted. "This planet is classified as extreme danger. The predators are aggressive and our ship's defenses are failing. Another pause. When Morrison spoke again, there was something like amusement in his voice. Don't worry about the predators, Commander. We'll handle them. Just keep your people alive until we get there. The signal cut out, leaving the bridge in silence. Vestan stared at the communication console in disbelief. Commander, they can't be serious. This is a death world. No rescue team can survive here long enough to help us. Zixara looked out at the hostile landscape beyond their ship. In the distance, she could see a pack of six-legged hunters circling their position. The creatures were the size of ground vehicles and had teeth like metal spears. Maybe humans are different, she said quietly. Maybe that's why they call them Deathworlders. Over the next 3 days, their situation got worse. Food was running low. 2 crew members had serious injuries that Zixara couldn't treat properly. The ship's hull was developing new cracks and toxic atmosphere was slowly leaking in. The predators grew bolder. They tested the ship's defenses constantly, looking for weak spots. Some were smart enough to use tools, throwing rocks at the viewing ports. Others simply tried to bite through the hull with their massive jaws. On the 3rd day, Nixel detected an incoming ship. But when she looked at the readings, she couldn't believe what she saw. Commander, they're actually doing it. The human ship is coming down through the storm. They're going to land right in the middle of those predators. Zixara watched her instruments in amazement. The human ship moved through conditions that would have destroyed any other vessel. It landed hard but controlled, sending the pack of hunters scattering in all directions. Through the static-filled communication system, Morrison's voice came through one more time. Iron Eagle to Gentle Horizon. We're here, Commander. Time to get you people home. The human ship Iron Eagle looked nothing like the graceful vessels that traveled between the peaceful worlds of the galaxy. It was built like a weapon, all sharp angles and heavy armor. Steam rose from its hull as it cooled in the planet's toxic atmosphere. Zixara pressed her face against the viewing port, watching in disbelief. The landing had scattered the pack of 6-legged predators, but they were already regrouping in the distance. These creatures feared nothing in their world, yet they seemed nervous about the human ship. Commander, they're opening their airlock, Vestan reported, his voice filled with fear and wonder. 5 figures emerged from the Iron Eagle wearing basic environmental suits that looked primitive compared to Kalari technology. But as Zixara watched, she realized these humans moved through the crushing gravity and toxic air like it was nothing special. The leader was clearly Captain Morrison. He was shorter than any Kalari, but built like a machine made for war. Behind him came 4 others, 3 males and 1 female. Each carried equipment that the Kalari didn't recognize. Gentle Horizon, this is Morrison. We're at your position. What's your status? Zixara activated the communication system with shaking hands. Captain Morrison, we have 12 crew members. 2 are seriously injured. Our ship's hull is cracked and we're losing atmosphere slowly. Copy that. We're setting up a defensive perimeter first. Then we'll assess your ship for evacuation. Through the viewer, Zixara watched the humans work. The female soldier, who moved with deadly grace, was positioning strange devices around their landing zone. One of the males was scanning the area with handheld equipment. Another was checking the human ship's systems. The 4th human, a woman with medical symbols on her suit, approached the Gentle Horizon with a device that looked like a scanner. Commander, this is Lisa Carter, ship's medic. I'm reading your life signs. We need to get your injured crew members stabilized before we move anyone. Dr. Carter, our medical facilities are limited. We don't have the equipment to treat major injuries. Don't worry about that. We brought our own. As if summoned by their conversation, one of the planet's apex predators chose that moment to attack. It came from behind a rock formation, a massive creature that looked like a cross between a lizard and a tank. Its hide was covered in natural armor and acid dripped from its jaws. Zixara screamed a warning, but the humans had already detected it. The female soldier, Amy Rodriguez according to her name tag, turned toward the charging beast with calm precision. She raised a weapon that fired solid projectiles and began shooting. The sound was incredible. Each shot rang out like thunder and each bullet found its target. The creature stumbled but kept coming. Rodriguez didn't panic. She simply adjusted her aim and kept firing until the beast finally collapsed just 10 meters from their position. Threat neutralized. Rodriguez reported in a voice so calm she might have been discussing the weather. Zixara stared in shock. The creature had been nearly 5 meters long and weighed several tons. In her world, such a beast would have been unstoppable. But this human female had killed it alone without even seeming worried. "Carter, you're clear to approach the ship," Morrison said. "Pete, start checking their hull integrity. Carl, I want sensors covering our 6 o'clock. More of those things will be coming." The humans moved with an efficiency that amazed the Kalari crew. Within minutes, Dr. Carter had entered their ship through the damaged airlock. She was smaller than any Kalari, but she moved through their corridors like she owned them. "Commander Zixara? I'm Dr. Carter. Let me take a look at that arm." Zixara tried to protest, but the human doctor was already examining her injury with gentle but firm hands. Her touch was surprisingly soft for someone from a death world. "Broken in 2 places, but I can fix it." "Where are your seriously injured crew members?" Felon led Dr. Carter to the rear compartments where 2 Kalari lay unconscious. One had internal bleeding from the crash. The other had suffered severe burns when a power conduit exploded. Dr. Carter examined both patients with equipment that was clearly more advanced than it looked. Her hands moved with practiced skill as she worked. "I can stabilize them for transport, but they'll need surgery on my ship." "Commander, how long can your life support hold out?" "Maybe 6 hours," Zixara admitted. "That's not enough time." "Morrison, we need to extract them now." Outside, Captain Morrison was studying the Gentle Horizon's hull damage with the engineer, Pete Sullivan. The ship's structure was worse than they had hoped. "Hull's cracked in 4 places," Sullivan reported. "The whole frame is twisted. This ship will never fly again." Morrison nodded grimly. "Can we build a bridge between the ships?" "Maybe, but it would take time, and we'd be exposed during construction." As if to emphasize his point, howls echoed across the landscape. In the distance, more predators were gathering. The scent of blood from the dead creature was attracting others. "Carl, what's your assessment?" Carl Jackson, the demolitions expert, was monitoring his sensors carefully. "We've got movement on all sides, Captain. I count at least 20 large predators circling us. They're keeping their distance for now, but they're getting braver." Morrison made a decision that would have seemed insane to any other species in the galaxy. "We stay and fight." "Pete, start building that bridge. Carl, prepare defensive positions. Amy, you're on overwatch. We hold this ground until everyone is safe." Dr. Carter's voice came over the communication system from inside the Kalari ship. "Captain, I can have the wounded ready for transport in 2 hours. But they're too fragile to move through open atmosphere." "Understood. Pete, how long for the bridge?" Sullivan was already pulling materials from the Iron Eagle's cargo hold. 4 hours if everything goes right. 6 if we run into problems." "Do it." Zixara listened to this conversation in growing amazement. These humans were planning to spend hours on a death world, defending a position against creatures that could kill them easily. All to save a crew of aliens they had never met. "Captain Morrison," she called over the communication system, "you don't understand. This planet will kill you. Those creatures out there have never been defeated by any species. You should take whoever you can and leave." Morrison's reply was immediate and firm. "Negative, Commander. We don't leave people behind. That's not what humans do." Outside, Pete Sullivan was already welding metal supports into place, working in the toxic atmosphere like it was just another day at the office. Amy Rodriguez had positioned herself on top of the Iron Eagle with a long-range weapon, scanning for threats. Carl Jackson was setting up defensive barriers using equipment that seemed to be designed specifically for situations like this. Everything about these humans suggested they had done this kind of mission before. "Commander," Dr. Carter said as she finished treating Zixara's arm, "your people are going to be fine. We'll get everyone out." "But why?" Zixara asked. "Why risk your lives for strangers?" Dr. Carter paused in her work and looked at the Kalari commander with kind eyes. "Because that's what rescue teams do. We save people. It doesn't matter what species they are or where they come from." As night fell on Kepler 442c, the sounds of approaching predators grew louder. But for the first time since the crash, Zixara felt something she hadn't expected to feel again. Hope. These Deathworlders had come to save them, and they seemed determined to succeed no matter what the cost. Dawn came slowly to Kepler 442c, bringing with it new challenges. Pete Sullivan had worked through the night, welding and building in the toxic atmosphere that should have killed him hours ago. Zixara watched through the viewing port as the human engineer took only brief breaks to drink water and rest. "How is he still alive out there?" Velen asked in wonder. Dr. Carter, who had stayed with the Kalari crew through the night, looked up from her medical equipment. "Humans evolved on a death world. Our atmosphere is mostly nitrogen and oxygen. but it also contains trace gases that would poison most species. Our gravity is stronger than the galactic average. Pete's body is adapted for worse conditions than this. The bridge connecting the two ships was taking shape. It looked rough and improvised, but Sullivan seemed confident in his work. The human had used materials from both ships, creating an enclosed tunnel that would protect the fragile Kalari during their evacuation. Amy Rodriguez had not moved from her position on top of the Iron Eagle. Through the night, she had fired her weapon dozens of times, picking off predators that tried to approach their position. Her accuracy was perfect. Every shot found its target. "Captain," Rodriguez called over the radio, "we've got a problem. Something big is moving in from the east, much bigger than anything we've seen so far." Morrison, who had been helping Sullivan with the bridge construction, turned to look through his scanner. In the distance, the ground was shaking with heavy footsteps. Trees were falling as something massive pushed through the forest. "How big?" he asked calmly. 30 meters long, maybe more. It's moving slow but steady. We have maybe an hour before it gets here." Sullivan wiped sweat from his face and checked his progress. "I need 3 hours to finish the bridge safely. 2 if I skip some safety checks." "Skip them," Morrison ordered. "Carl, can you slow that thing down?" Jackson was studying his explosive charges thoughtfully. "I can try, but I don't know how much damage it will take to stop something that size." Inside the gentle horizon, Zixara felt her hope beginning to fade again. Through Dr. Carter's description, she was starting to understand that humans were indeed different from other species, but even Deathworlders had limits. "Dr. Carter, you should evacuate who you can and leave. That creature will destroy both ships." The human medic looked at her with those strange, determined eyes that seemed to be common among her species. "Commander, we've been in worse situations. Trust us, but how can you be so calm? Don't you feel fear?" Dr. Carter smiled, showing teeth that were clearly designed for eating meat. "Of course we feel fear. Fear keeps us alive, but we don't let it control us." Outside, the work continued. Sullivan had enlisted Carl Jackson to help with the bridge construction. Both humans moved with desperate efficiency, knowing their time was running out. They shared their rations with the Kalari without complaint, even though it meant going hungry themselves. Morrison divided his time between helping with construction and monitoring their defenses. He moved constantly, checking on each team member and staying in communication with the Kalari crew. "Commander," he called over the radio, "we're going to start moving your wounded crew members first. Dr. Carter says they can't wait for the bridge to be fully finished." "Captain, it's too dangerous. The bridge isn't complete. We'll carry them across the open sections. My people are strong enough." Zixara watched in amazement as the humans did exactly what they promised. Dr. Carter and Morrison crossed the partially built bridge, carrying the injured Kalari between them. The wounded crew members were unconscious and completely helpless, but the humans treated them with incredible care. The bridge swayed dangerously in the wind, and toxic gases swirled around them. But Morrison and Dr. Carter moved with steady confidence, protecting their patients with their own bodies. "First 2 casualties secure in our medical bay," Dr. Carter reported. "Coming back for the others." By midday, they had moved 8 of the 12 crew members to safety. Only Zixara, Velen, Nixel, and 1 other scientist remained on the gentle horizon. The massive predator was getting closer, and the ground shook with each of its steps. Sullivan was exhausting himself trying to finish the bridge. His environmental suit was covered in sweat and his hands were shaking from fatigue, but he refused to stop working. "Pete, take a break," Morrison ordered. "No time, Captain. That thing will be here soon." Rodriguez's voice cut through their conversation. "Contact!" The big one just broke through the tree line. Sweet mother of earth, that thing is huge. Through the viewing port, Zixara saw the creature for the first time. It looked like a mountain that had learned to walk. Its hide was thick as armor plating, and its mouth could have swallowed their entire ship. Acid dripped from its jaws, burning the ground where it fell. "All stations prepare for combat," Morrison ordered. "Pete, forget the bridge. We're doing this the hard way." "What do you mean?" Zixara asked over the radio. "We're going to carry your people to safety, 1 at a time if we have to." The plan was insane by any reasonable standard. The distance between ships was 50 meters of open ground. The toxic atmosphere would kill any Kalari in seconds without protection, but the humans seemed to think they could do it. Carl Jackson activated his explosive charges as the massive predator approached. The explosion sent dirt and rocks flying but barely slowed the creature down. It was too big and too tough to be stopped by conventional weapons. That's not going to work, Jackson reported grimly. Morrison made a decision that showed exactly why humans were called Deathworlders. Change of plans. We fight. Captain, Amy Rodriguez called from her overwatch position. My rifle isn't going to do much against that thing. Then we get creative. Pete, can you rig an overload on their power systems? Sullivan was already running toward the gentle horizon with his tools. If I overload their main reactor, the explosion might hurt it. But it will also destroy their ship. Do it. Commander Zixara, we're evacuating your remaining crew now. No arguments. The next few minutes were chaos. Morrison and Dr. Carter crossed to the Kalari ship, while Sullivan worked frantically on the reactor overload. Rodriguez continued firing at smaller predators that were trying to take advantage of the confusion. Jackson ran back and forth between positions, setting up more explosive charges around the massive creature's path. He was trying to channel it away from the ships, but the beast was too smart to be easily fooled. Got the scientist and Velen, Morrison reported as he carried 2 Kalari across the dangerous gap between ships. Dr. Carter was right behind him with another crew member. That left only Zixara and Nixel. Commander, you're next, Morrison said as he reached the gentle horizon again. But as they prepared to cross, the massive predator reached their position. Its enormous head rose above both ships, and its eyes focused on the humans with intelligent hunger. Sullivan looked up from his work on the reactor. 30 seconds to overload. Move, move, move! Morrison shouted, lifting Zixara in his arms like she weighed nothing. The creature's massive jaws opened, and acid began to drip toward them. But before it could attack, something unexpected happened. Amy Rodriguez, from her position on the Iron Eagle, did something that no other species in the galaxy would have attempted. She jumped from the ship and landed on the creature's head, firing her weapon directly into its eyes at point-blank range. Amy Rodriguez rode the massive predator like a warrior from ancient human legends. The creature thrashed its enormous head, trying to shake her off, but she held on with one hand while firing her weapon into its eye with the other. Rodriguez, what are you doing? Morrison shouted as he carried Zixara across the gap between ships. Buying you time, Captain, Rodriguez replied calmly, even as the beast tried to crush her against a nearby rock formation. The creature's roar shook the ground and cracked the viewing ports on both ships. It was in pain and fury, but it was far from dead. Blood ran from its damaged eye, but creatures like this had survived on Kepler 442c for millions of years. They didn't die easily. Morrison reached the Iron Eagle with Zixara just as Pete Sullivan's voice crackled over the radio. Reactor overload in 10 seconds. Everyone clear the area. But Dr. Carter and Nixel were still crossing the bridge. The young Kalari scientist was terrified and moving slowly despite Carter's encouragement. They wouldn't make it in time. Pete, abort the overload, Morrison ordered. Can't, Captain. The sequence is locked in. Morrison made another decision that proved humans were different from every other species in the galaxy. He handed Zixara to another crew member and ran back toward the bridge. Jake, no, Dr. Carter shouted, but it was too late. Morrison reached Dr. Carter and Nixel just as the gentle horizon exploded behind them. The blast wave knocked all 3 of them off the bridge and sent them tumbling toward the rocky ground below. But humans, Zixara realized, were built to survive falls that would kill other species. Morrison twisted in midair to protect the 2 he was carrying, taking the impact on his own back when they hit the ground. The explosion had another effect that none of them expected. The massive predator, already wounded and angry, was caught in the blast. The force threw it backward and stunned it temporarily. Rodriguez used the opportunity to jump clear, rolling when she hit the ground and coming up with her weapon ready. Everyone alive? Morrison called out as he pulled himself to his feet. His armor was cracked and blood was running down his face, but he was still moving. Carter here. I'm okay. Nixel is unconscious but breathing. Rodriguez, status. Bruised but functional, Captain. And really angry at that thing. The massive predator was getting back to its feet, shaking its head to clear the ringing from the explosion. One eye was ruined and its hide was burned, but it was still very much alive and very much angry. We need to get off this planet, Dr. Carter said as she checked Nixel for injuries. That thing won't give up. Agreed, Morrison replied. But we've got a problem. Our bridge is gone, and we're 50 meters from the ship. Zixara watched from the safety of the Iron Eagle as the humans assessed their situation. They were trapped on the ground with an injured alien and a massive predator that wanted to kill them all. Any other species would have given up. But these humans started planning their next move like it was just another problem to solve. "Pete, can you create a distraction with the remaining charges?" Morrison asked. Sullivan was already pulling explosive devices from his pack. "I can try to draw it away from you, but those charges won't do much damage to something that big. Don't need to kill it. Just need it to look the other way for 30 seconds. Rodriguez checked her weapons ammunition. "I'm running low on rounds, Captain. Maybe 20 shots left. Save them. Carl, you're up." Jackson began placing his charges in a pattern around the creature's position. The beast watched him with its remaining eye, intelligent enough to recognize a threat, but it seemed confused about which human to attack first. "Ready, Captain," Jackson reported. "Light it up." The explosions went off in sequence, designed to confuse and disorient rather than damage. The massive predator spun around, trying to track the source of the blasts. For a moment, its attention was focused away from the stranded humans. Morrison didn't waste the opportunity. He lifted Nixel in his arms while Dr. Carter grabbed her medical equipment. Both humans ran toward their ship with speed that amazed Zixara. But the predator was too smart to be fooled for long. It turned toward the running humans and opened its massive jaws. Acid began to form in its mouth, preparing to spray death across the ground between them and safety. That's when Amy Rodriguez did something that would become legend among the rescued Kalari crew. She stepped directly into the creature's path and raised her weapon. "Not today, you oversized lizard," she said, and began firing. Her shots were perfectly placed, each bullet hitting the creature in its damaged eye socket. The pain drove it into a rage, and it forgot about Morrison and Dr. Carter completely. All of its attention focused on the small human female who dared to stand against it. Rodriguez backpedaled as she fired, leading the creature away from her crewmates. But she was running out of ammunition, and the beast was getting closer with each step. "Amy, get out of there," Morrison called over the radio. "Almost out of rounds, Captain. This thing is too tough." The predator lunged forward with surprising speed for something so large. Rodriguez dove to the side, but one of the creature's claws caught her environmental suit. She hit the ground hard and didn't get up immediately. "Rodriguez is down," Dr. Carter reported as she and Morrison reached the Iron Eagle with Nixel. "She's not moving." Morrison turned toward the fallen soldier, but Carl Jackson was already running. The demolitions expert had one charge left, and he was carrying it directly toward the massive predator. "Carl, what's your plan?" Morrison demanded. "Same as always, Captain. Make a big boom." Jackson reached Rodriguez just as the creature was moving in for the kill. He helped the injured soldier to her feet while keeping himself between her and the beast. "Can you move?" he asked. "Yeah, but not fast. My leg's messed up." Jackson looked at the advancing predator, then at the explosive charge in his hand. The device was powerful enough to seriously damage the creature, but only if it detonated at close range. Very close range. "Pete," he called over the radio, "I need you to bring the ship over here. Right now." "Carl, what are you planning?" Morrison's voice was sharp with concern. "Just trust me, Captain." Sullivan was already firing up the Iron Eagle's engines. The ship lifted off the ground and moved toward Jackson's position, but it would take precious seconds to reach them. The massive predator was only meters away now, its remaining eye fixed on the two humans. Acid dripped from its jaws as it prepared to end their threat once and for all. Jackson made his decision. He activated the explosive charge and threw it directly into the creature's open mouth. "Everyone down," he shouted, throwing himself on top of Rodriguez to shield her from the blast. The explosion came from inside the creature's body. The force tore through its internal organs and erupted from its mouth and nose. The massive predator staggered backward, confused and dying, but it wasn't dead yet. With its last strength, it lunged forward toward the two humans on the ground. Jackson looked up to see tons of dying creature falling toward them. That's when Pete Sullivan proved that human pilots were just as crazy as human soldiers. The Iron Eagle dropped out of the sky like a falling rock, its hull slamming into the dying predator and knocking it aside just before it could crush Jackson and Rodriguez. The impact damaged the ship's hull and cracked several viewing ports, but Sullivan managed to keep them airborne. The massive predator finally collapsed and lay still. "Is everyone alive?" Morrison called out. "Jackson here. Rodriguez needs medical attention, but we're breathing. Sullivan here. Ship's damaged, but flyable." From her position inside the Iron Eagle, Zixara watched as the humans picked up their wounded crew member and prepared for evacuation. They had fought a creature that could have destroyed a small city, and they had won. But as they prepared to leave Kepler 442c, New dangers were approaching. The explosion and the smell of blood had attracted other predators. Dozens of smaller but still deadly creatures were moving toward their position. "Captain," Amy Rodriguez said weakly as Dr. Carter examined her injuries, "we've got company coming. Lots of it." Morrison looked at the approaching threats and made one final decision that would define how the galaxy saw humanity forever. "Pete, can this ship still fight?" "Yes, sir. Weapons are online. Then we're not running. We end this here." The Iron Eagle hung in the toxic atmosphere of Kepler 442c, like a wounded bird of prey. Through the cracked viewing ports, Zixara could see dozens of predators approaching from all directions. The explosion that killed the massive creature had attracted every dangerous animal within kilometers. Captain Morrison stood in the center of the bridge. His armor cracked and his face bloodied, but his voice remained calm and steady. "Pete, give me weapons status. Forward cannons are operational. Missile systems are damaged, but I can probably get 1 or 2 shots. Engine output is down to 60%. Dr. Carter was working frantically to treat Amy Rodriguez's injuries while the ship shook from atmospheric turbulence. The human medic had turned part of the cargo bay into a field hospital for the rescued Kalari crew. "How's our patient?" Morrison asked. "Rodriguez will live, but she needs surgery. The Kalari are stable but traumatized. Captain, we need to get off this planet." "Working on it." "Carl, what do you see down there?" Jackson was monitoring the external cameras and sensors. 40, maybe 50 creatures converging on our position. Mix of species, all of them big and angry. They can smell the blood from that dead giant. Morrison studied the tactical display. The predators were surrounding them in a loose circle, testing the ship's defenses but not yet attacking. They seemed to be waiting for something. "They're pack hunters," Rodriguez said weakly from her medical bed. "They're coordinating their attack." Zixara listened to this conversation with growing amazement. These humans were discussing a fight against 50 deadly predators like it was a routine military operation. They showed no panic, no despair, only calm professionalism. "Commander Zixara," Morrison called out, "I need to know about your crew. Are they all stable enough for high-G maneuvers?" "I think so, Captain." "But why?" "Because we're about to find out if this old ship can still dance." Sullivan's hands moved over the flight controls with practiced skill. "Captain, I can give you maybe 10 minutes of combat flight before the engines overheat. After that, we're grounded permanently. 10 minutes will have to be enough. All stations prepare for combat." The first wave of predators attacked from 3 directions simultaneously. These creatures had learned to work together, using pack tactics that would have impressed human military strategists. Sullivan threw the Iron Eagle into a rolling dive that should have been impossible for a ship of its size. The damaged vessel responded like it was still in perfect condition, spinning through the air while its weapons fired at the charging predators below. "First group neutralized," Jackson reported. "But here comes the second wave." These creatures were smarter. They had learned from watching the first attack. Some climbed onto high rocks to jump at the ship from above. Others spread out to avoid the concentrated weapons fire. "Pete, take us low. I want to use the ground effect." Sullivan dropped the ship until it was skimming just meters above the rocky surface. The move confused the predators and gave the humans a tactical advantage. But it also put enormous stress on the damaged engines. Engine temperature rising fast. "Captain, just a little longer." Rodriguez, despite her injuries, had managed to reach a weapons station. "I've got the rear guns online. Give me something to shoot at." The battle became a deadly dance between human technology and alien evolution. The Iron Eagle moved through the sky like it was alive, dodging attacks and returning fire with precision that amazed the watching Kalari. But the ship was taking damage. Each impact from the Predator's acid spit burned through more hull plating. The engines were beginning to smoke and several systems were failing. "Captain," Dr. Carter called out, "the Kalari can't take much more of this. The G-forces are overwhelming their physiology." Morrison made a decision that would have seemed impossible to any other species. Instead of retreating to safety, he chose to end the fight quickly and decisively. "Pete, I need you to put us down in the middle of that pack." "Sir, that's suicide. They'll tear us apart. Trust me." "Carl, prepare all remaining charges for simultaneous detonation." Sullivan looked at his captain like he was crazy, but he followed orders. The Iron Eagle dropped toward the ground where the largest concentration of predators waited. The creatures sensed an opportunity and moved to surround the landing site. "External charges armed and ready," Jackson reported. "Dr. Carter, Get everyone strapped in tight. This is going to be rough. The ship touched down hard, its damaged landing gear barely holding under the impact. Immediately, the predators swarmed toward them from all directions. Claws and teeth scraped against the hull as dozens of creatures tried to find a way inside. Now, Carl. The explosions lit up the landscape like miniature suns. Every external charge detonated simultaneously, creating a wall of fire and destruction around the Iron Eagle. The blast wave knocked down every predator within 100 meters and stunned many others. When the smoke cleared, the area around the ship looked like a battlefield. Most of the predators were dead or fled. The few that remained were too injured to pose a threat. Status report, Morrison called out. Hull integrity holding. Engines are fried, but life support is stable, Sullivan reported. All Kalari crew members are alive and conscious, Dr. Carter added. Scared but safe. Rodriguez managed a weak smile. I think we just taught this planet that humans don't give up. Morrison activated the long-range communication system. This is Captain Morrison of the Iron Eagle calling any galactic rescue vessel in range. We have successfully recovered the Kalari crew from Kepler 442c and require evacuation support. The response came within minutes. Iron Eagle, this is the rescue ship Gentle Current. We are 3 hours from your position. Are you secure? Affirmative. The landing zone is clear, and all survivors are stable. As they waited for rescue, Zixara found herself studying the humans who had saved her crew. They moved around the ship, checking systems and treating injuries. Like fighting for their lives against impossible odds was just part of their normal routine. Captain Morrison, she said finally, I need to understand something. Why did you risk everything for us? We're strangers from a different species. You could have died. Morrison paused in his work and looked at her with those determined human eyes. Commander, where I come from, we have a saying. No one gets left behind. It doesn't matter who you are or where you come from. If you need help, we help, but the risk, there's always risk. But some things are more important than safety. Dr. Carter finished treating the last of the injured crew members and joined the conversation. Commander, humans spent millions of years fighting to survive on our world. We learned that working together, protecting each other was the only way to live through the dangers. Your species calls us deathworlders, Rodriguez added, limping over to join them. They think it means we're violent and dangerous. They're not wrong, but they don't understand the full picture. What do you mean? We're dangerous to things that threaten people we care about, Morrison explained. But we're also the species that will fly across the galaxy to save strangers. The same instincts that make us good at fighting make us good at protecting others. Pete Sullivan looked up from his engine repairs. Besides, someone has to do the dangerous rescues. Might as well be the species that's built for it. 3 hours later, the galactic rescue ship Gentle Current arrived at Kepler 442c. Its crew was amazed to find the Iron Eagle intact and all the survivors alive and healthy. As they transferred to the rescue ship, Zixara took one last look at the planet that had nearly killed them all. The ground around the Iron Eagle was scarred, with blast craters and the remains of predators that had learned too late that humans were more dangerous than anything on their world. Captain Morrison, she said as they prepared to leave, I have to file a report about this mission with the Galactic Council. What should I tell them about humans? Morrison thought for a moment, then smiled. Tell them the truth, Commander. We're exactly as dangerous as they think we are, but we're dangerous in defense of others, not for conquest. Tell them that when someone cries for rescue, humans will answer that call no matter how impossible the mission seems. And if they ask why, because that's what we do. We protect people. All people. Even ones we've never met before. As the rescue ship left Kepler 442c behind, Zixara began composing her report. She thought about how the galaxy saw humans, as violent deathworlders to be feared and avoided. But she had learned something that changed everything. Humans were indeed deathworlders. They were tough, resilient, and capable of incredible violence. But those same traits that made them dangerous also made them the galaxy's most reliable protectors. They didn't seek conquest or domination. They sought to help others survive in a dangerous universe. In her report, Zixara wrote about the rescue mission in detail. She described how 5 humans had fought their way through impossible odds to save 12 aliens they had never met. She explained how they had shared their food, risked their lives, and refused to abandon anyone, but most importantly, she wrote about the moment when Captain Morrison had said, "No one gets left behind." Because that she realized was what made humanity special. Not their ability to survive on deathworlds, but their refusal to let others die alone. The galaxy had been wrong about humans. They weren't just deathworlders. They were the people you called when everything